Tieto Töihin podcast.
Welcome to Tieto Töihin podcast, first ever English episode. By the way, I don't think you do understand what Tieto Töihin means.
No.
So I try to translate it. Its direct translation would be something like putting data to work, turning knowledge into action, from data to work. Those are the translations which I made with ChatGPT.
Nice.
But
Okay.
the point is that how we get value from data, how we have how we get some how data turns into the action, that it's not just laying in some data storages.
Nice.
So
I like
that's
it.
the point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I have an amazing guest here, Tiankai Feng, with me. I would say a star author in the
Wow.
field of data. It feels like people are not talking anything else in LinkedIn right now. Yesterday, Tiankai was having a keynote in Helsinki Data Week. When this episode comes out, it's probably some weeks ago because we will publish it a little bit later.
Right.
But I have to say it was really special presentation. It wasn't very usual you would expect from going to Data Week, listening presentation about data strategy. You started with the data musical.
Yes.
You played piano. It was cool, and you ended it with the rap
Exactly.
of data governance.
True.
Yeah, it was really a pleasure to
Thank you.
hear it. And I
Thanks so
think
much.
people actually enjoyed it, and it was something different than 100 slides about data governance. And that's what you try to explain, that it could be fun, it could be inclusive,
Exactly.
the data, whole data world. It don't have to be so boring and just people coding somewhere in dark rooms. It can be fun, like you made it fun.
Exactly.
But okay, you can introduce yourself to start with.
Absolutely. So I'm Tiankai. I work currently as a director for data and AI strategy at ThoughtWorks, which is a consultancy focusing on data and tech solutions. But I've always been very passionate about the human side of data and AI, which is also why I wrote 2 books about it, right? Humanizing Data Strategy last year and Humanizing AI Strategy, which was just released now a few weeks ago. And yeah, I think that many of the failures that are happening in the data and AI space are rooted in human factors, right? Like it's always something about bad decisions, a lack of collaboration, inconsistent knowledge and skill sets, and all these kind of things are the main reasons why we fail on these things. And I hope that through my knowledge and through the expertise that I try to communicate to people, we have a more structured approach to address it, right? And that we don't forget actually that it's about the human beings, and we do all of that for other people and with other people. And it's not just for the technology, right? It's about providing purpose and some kind of impact for society. And that's what I'm trying to ambassador for.
Yeah. Yeah. I read your book in the end of summer, and it gave me a lot of thoughts, because that's exactly what I'm personally thinking in my own work, that what actually data strategy is. One thing I was thinking when I was reading your book was that, do you mean data strategy as a thing, as a document or paper that has a title on it, that has like a company name and data strategy, which is one way to think about it and one way to make it? Or do you think it more about as a verb, something like a continuous process of trying to turn data into some value?
It's a good question. I think I would say it's both, right? And the reason why I'm saying it's both, it's because data strategy needs to be, on the one hand side, an artifact, right? There needs to be at least some kind of documented, agreed upon, let's say, paper that everyone agrees on these other directions and decisions we're making to solve specific problems and to optimize specific metrics, ABC, right? But the process to get there is actually a lot of like doing things, right? Because before you put it out there, you need to agree with everyone and get everyone on the same page to understand the as is and define the to be to even define that strategy. And if then afterwards, right, once you have the artifact, somebody needs to make sure that you're still executing according to that plan, right? But what I think is that there's this misconception that a strategy document should be as long as possible, right? Some people write like 200-page strategy documents, but the more detailed you become and the more specific you get, the more likely it's going to be outdated too, right? So by the time you might have communicated to everyone, technology might have changed, specific operations have changed, and you have to edit maybe 80% of the whole document again. So I always think about it as a strategic document that is directional but not instructional, right? Let's keep it high level, but as specific enough so everyone can understand it in the right way and there's no room for misinterpretation. So I have seen now other companies and also including my own clients to do like one-pager strategies, which is completely enough, right? You just kind of put like specific targets, specific directions and decisions you make, and then you let the experts on the ground figure out the details, but it all follows something that everyone agreed upon upfront.
Yeah. And that's when you have to get the people involved.
Exactly.
You have to humanize the data strategy. Maybe one road is to like make it technologically possible, and one way is that you have to take everybody involved. But yeah, that's good that you think is also as an artifact that organizations should have, but most of the work is something else. And you talked yesterday about like how to make data development and data strategy more inclusive. So what are the tools and ways which you think we should use? You used yesterday music, for example,
Right.
and humor. But for example, I can't sing or play anything, or you don't want to hear it. So what I should do if I consult companies or organizations to make it more inclusive?
I think, it all comes down to how you communicate, right? And when you communicate anything, you have the what and the how, right? You have the message that needs to convince the other side about something, but you always have a choice about how you want to bring it over. And I think the how is the part that makes it inclusive or not inclusive, right? You could, for example, use a lot of very complicated words and really specific technological terms to describe it, and you immediately lose the business people because they have no idea. 80% of the words you use, they don't understand, right? Or you make an effort and you use as simple as possible the words that the audience might understand. And you might even use storytelling techniques like analogies or metaphors to actually make your point. And then you still get over the same message. It's just much easier for the audience to understand it. And I think with inclusivity, it's exactly that, right? One is you don't want the audience to feel that they're stupid, right? That they don't understand it. So the first reaction show, oh my God, I don't understand it enough. I think I'm the stupid one. But you also don't want to treat them as babies, right? It's not like you use two simple words and speak really slowly and they're offending them again. So finding that balance is what makes it inclusive. And even like specific words are triggering, right? Like you and I, we work in data governance, for example. So governance as a term can be triggering so much and you don't even know where that comes from, right? Sometimes you talk data governance, somebody is like 100% against it and they have gone through things that we don't know what they've gone through, but the term triggers certain bad memories for them. And then you change the word like into enablement or whatever, and finally it's fine. So it's all about also understanding what are the sensitivities as well of the audience. So you try to understand what their weaknesses or their own sensitivities are, and then you address it and you make them part of the journey. That's what for me inclusivity is.
Yeah. You have to, like in all communication, you have to understand the target group, what drives them, what is their level. And that's exactly what happens if you use English or Finnish. It doesn't matter if you, like in Finnish, when we talk about data governance, we use the term data governance. it's not really like,
Does it
I
sound
mean in
worse
English
in Finnish then?
so
If you would
there
translate
is
it literally?
there is our own word, datanhallintamalli. We could use like the specific Finnish translation, but mostly we are using in Finland all these English terms. So how approachable is it to some person
Got it.
right there to adapt data governance, which
Right.
I come to. If I go there to talk about, let's do data governance. But that is really difficult. And I was like, what I was thinking yesterday that, for example, in Helsinki Data Week yesterday, there was a lot of interesting topics, but they are quite difficult for if you have full business people,
Right.
who have zero like tasks or background on data. For example, something like conceptual models and semantic layer like this, which should be like in data world, that is the language to bring together data and business people. But when you go to talk to them, it's still too difficult. Like it's point of conceptual models and semantic layer is quite easy. We have to understand how the business works. We kind of draw and document that, and then we try to get the physical and logical layers like a mirror that.
Right.
But still, like what words to use? Like even the Finnish translation for conceptual model is something like people are, I don't understand what is that.
Right.
So
yeah.
Have you found any ways to use the terms a way that people actually would understand what are they?
It's a really good point. I think I have the same experience. So when I say, let's do a conceptual data model together, then first reaction is, oh no, the data modeling, I have never done this. What does it mean? I don't think I'm comfortable doing this, right? But if you don't call it that, very like simplified, and you just say, let's just draw down some entities and relationships of other things that you care. I'm gonna put a diagram together based on what you're saying, and we look at it together. And you just kind of, does it make sense, right? Do the arrows make sense? Do the relationships make sense? What do you think? Is it understandable for you? And they would say, oh yeah, that reflects my reality very well. And then you can afterwards say, that is actually a conceptual data model, right? So I think it's more about you give them a purpose of what it is and then call it something. It's much more approachable than first saying, we're gonna do like a very special thing now, and I need you to help me. Because it's often that thing that you use jargon and you use certain words that already make people intimidated by it. So by just doing it the other way around and you're trying to reach a goal, let's make this documentation, and you don't call it what kind of documentation is this, it's much easier for people to get, I think.
Yeah, that's a very good tip. You don't actually have to say that we are drawing a conceptual model. You just, want to understand you.
Exactly.
Let's draw something. We have here order and product and customer, and then later on tell that, or you don't have to even tell it actually. You can just draw those pictures, and then in your own glossaries and tools you can have.
And another example for that approach is also data ownership, because as you know, data ownership is always scary. No one wants to do it, right? It's very hard to convince people. So I tried a different approach now often, which is the other way around, right? So I need a business expert to help me make these decisions, right? Yeah. So I'm going to give you all of those information. Can you tell me if option A, B, or C is right? And what would you want to have? And they would say, like, option C sounds best for me. And then afterwards, I would tell that, look, you were a data owner just now, right? This is what you would do as a data owner. So congratulations, you know how data ownership works. So it's much nicer the other way around. They're like, oh, that is not too bad. I think I can do this. Versus, I will want you to make your data owner now, and these are all of the tasks you have to do. And are you saying yes or no, right? It's completely the other way around. So it's almost like that subtle, non-invasive way, right? To say, let's do it, and then surprise, we did it the whole time.
Yeah. I literally came to meet you downstairs from a meeting that I was presenting what is the data stewardship role in PowerPoint slides.
Right.
And you should adopt this. Okay, there is reasons, because it's a so big organization that you have to have this kind of documentation. But that's the problem in implementing that, is that people don't actually understand what is data stewardship. Yeah. Even you have quite clear documentation, these are your tasks and responsibilities. Still, it's like, actually, I'm doing here like the job that I was hired.
Right.
It doesn't say in my employment contract that
my job title
is that. But But then when you implement the data governance model and stewardship and everything, you could, in the implementation phase, do that
Exactly.
you may be present that, okay, these are the tasks, but then you help them to, like, you
Exactly.
just go there, we need a decision, can we do this change or whatever, and then you kind of help them to adopt the new role.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
In your presentation yesterday and also in a book, briefly, you talk about this offensive and defensive sides. I also use that like two parts, and then in the middle you have like data. You have to do offensive or like defensive tasks and governance, and
Right.
of course that you get some value out of it. You need the offensive side. Can you describe these two
Absolutely.
briefly?
So, I mean, basically, defensive means it's about avoiding risk, and that's very much driven by protecting yourself, right? That's, for example, regulatory risks, right? Like new regulations means you have to make sure you don't get fined or nobody has to go to jail. It's also about brand reputation, for example, right? So it's all about if you want to say you are sustainable, for example, but you don't have the data to prove it, then your brand might hurt because you create like consumer perception problems about it. And those are the things that basically are driving more from a let's protect what we have. But the offensive way is more about maximizing value. So that's all about making more fact based decisions. You use accurate data to drive the right insights, to actually take the right actions to then maximize the value, right? So profitability should increase, and you innovate because of it too, right? Because let's say, for example, with AI or any kind of other innovation use cases, you would drive it there. And I think it's more about having that conscious choice between how much is driven by defensive reasons and how much is driven by offensive reasons, because sometimes they are conflicting with each other too, right? Like, if I would say from a legislation point of view, as little as possible would access to people, then you might actually hurt innovation, right? Because then you don't give people that are working on innovation the right access, or they don't get access at all, and they will not make any progress because of it. So making those conscious choices to say, no, this is now important, and we want to focus on innovation, so we need to give access. So we will have an acceptable risk within the compliance space, but for that reason, we will actually gain more in innovation. And that is, I think, just something that people should more consciously think about.
Yeah. Have you seen any organization that they have like explicitly said or like listed the risk level they are willing to have? What I mean is that, for example, I have seen in my customers that there is it takes a whole year to build some very like basic reports because it's stuck in GDPR impact assessment procedure.
Yeah.
So what organizations could do is that there is a high risk and a low risk
Correct.
data sources which you have like a fast track, but it could be really complicated because if you write it down, you have to have like the safest way possible,
Right.
like publicly. So I'm not sure if it's possible to make this like we are willing to make take this much risk or this much risk, or is it more like a cultural thing and the decision making thing that leaders?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, yes, I would say the answer to it is data classification, right?
Yeah.
That if you can do it on object level and not on system level, then no matter where these data objects are flowing, they will always be tagged, so to say, right, with a certain classification. And the classification is based on sensitivity or risk levels, for example, right?
Yeah.
Let's say, for example, with personal information, you want to make sure that as little as possible there's access to the actual raw data of those records, right? And you might make a choice to say whenever it's customer data, it will by default always be masked or anonymized or whatever, right? So we always take that step. And you put it into the technology too, right? You make like basically the case that whenever it's transformed in any ETL process, it's always being masked and on access layer or by storage layer already being done. So what that means is, right, you would on policy level define first that you have those bigger rules, right? For certain data of a specific sensitivity level, we were always going to do these rules. And if you want an exception, you have to go through that process, that like a specific process. But then at least that process is not as in demand and will not be that slow anymore because not everyone has to go through it, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of automate it based on specific rules that you do on a policy level and then only deal with the exceptions. And that's something that leaders can then also live with, right? Where you don't create a whole new approval process for everyone and you're stuck as a bottleneck approving all of the access and with no one actually having a clue. But you shift it towards making the right preparation first and then consistently implementing those guardrails.
Yeah. Yeah, let's not slip too deep to that dark side of data. Let's go back to this human level. But that is actually very important. That's like that is like very important topic. But in your book, the main concept is these 5 C's, which you presented us yesterday. Those are, you can tell more deeply what are they, but competence, collaboration, communication, and what am I missing?
Creativity and conscience.
Yeah.
The other term. Yeah.
So those are the core things to humanize data strategy.
Exactly.
So can you go maybe one by one
Sure.
and describe them briefly?
Yeah. So competence really is about having the right knowledge and skill set across data, business, and technology teams, right? And it's about basically addressing that people want to grow and change their careers as well, and giving them the opportunities to do that also in the same organization. Then we have collaboration, which is about having basically shared purpose and shared goals to make sure that within teams, but also across teams, people can work together on the right data initiatives with the right motivation. Then we have communication, right, which is really all about how we frame the value of data. And I talk a lot about how we cannot frame it only on business organizational level, but also on personal level. Because for people to actually be intrinsically motivated, it's not enough just to deal with a business KPI that's very abstract, but something that they actually are identifying themselves with, that they actually like doing, right? Like experimentation or doing something nice for society, right? That could be reasons. Then we have creativity, which is all about, I would say, the human basis for innovation, right? So all of innovation in organizations come from good ideas, and good ideas come from human beings. So how do we enable people to bring their creativity to work and put their ideas to practice to actually generate outcomes from the ideas too? And conscience, right, which is about the moral compass and critical thinking, right? That we don't want to consciously or subconsciously do bad things to other people, but how can we ensure that we do it? And how do we have the right expertise and the right people together to make the right decisions about how we deal with data in an ethical way?
Yeah. Conscience is when you are putting all your customers' classified information to the ChatGPT.
Exactly.
That you should feel something.
Yeah.
Maybe this is not right.
Ideally, you feel that before you do it, but if you feel it afterwards, it might be too late. But
before pushing enter.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the creativity is actually very important. When I have noticed that one of the factors that makes AI utilization hard, like one of the factors that make it hard for organizations is not the technology which gives something every week comes up something new, but it's the ideas. So the problem is not what you can do with this technology right now, or the technology what it can do, but what you can do with it.
Yeah.
And yesterday the first presentation about AI, it was about you can have you can use prompts on making like organizational level process or like personal level, for example. And this organizational and process level is something that you have to people have to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
You have to bring out new ideas that what we can do better, how this process could go better with AI or data.
Right.
So is there any ways to like, one of the ways is just to establish like a idea or innovation factory kind of thing to the organization. That's like the consulting
Yeah.
approach. But what are the real ways to improve this creativity that
Right.
people would be excited and inspired to bring out new ideas and innovative
Yeah.
innovations?
I think creativity, I mean, so in my book I also describe there are two types of creativity, right? One is I would call it the solution driven creativity, right? So you actually see a lot of problems and you want to brainstorm what the best possible solution for it is, right? The other one is more I think the spontaneous creativity, I would call it, which is that you don't have any impulse and just suddenly you have that idea about something. Like artists often talk about it. I suddenly just really want to create a song out of this or draw this on something, which happens not too often at work. But if you are creatively more exercised in it, then you might have that too. But solution driven creativity is the easier one to start with, right? And it's also the one that motivates you the most because all it takes is you being able to acknowledge what problems have not been solved so far, and you just come up with the best idea possible for it. And oftentimes it's things that felt so little that you just were annoyed by it very small, but you just kept it going, right? Let's say, for example, I don't know, right? You always have a problem with a certain software and you always need to restart it, right? Twice per day. And you just never get to actually solve the root cause. Now, what might be the best solution? And you think about it, right? Is it fixing the bug and you can actually fix yourself? Is it reinstalling a whole new software? Is it maybe kind of updating the software? You just never got to it. But think about the best solution, and that process itself is creativity, right? You think about what is possible and you use your brain to think of the best solution. And the reward is high because you finally solved the problem, right? So I would encourage everyone, if they want to start being creative, look at problems that already are persistent in your life and think about the best idea there. That's the best exercise you can do to start being creative. And the more you do it, the more confident you become to also solve bigger business critical problems, right? And suddenly you realize there's so many things you can think about in a new way to actually come up with new ideas.
So you have to start with smaller things, and then maybe you will get to the ideas which will change your whole business. Yeah, that was interesting. You said in the presentation, you talked about these incentives, like there has to be like personal incentives that people actually are motivated.
Right.
So, and then there is like overlap between personal incentive. It can be money, less manual work, whatever.
Exactly.
Your life is just easier, and then you become a little bit more productive, and then the company incentive is profitability.
Yep.
And then the overlap is when they meet is that they shake hands, that actually we become more productive as a company. So is there any ways to what would be the ways to like build these incentives to individual level? Because I'm not saying that many people, but there are people who are not maybe so motivated on becoming more productive. For example,
I see what you're saying.
So how to make it attractive that, hey, let's get rid of all these Excels and let's replace it with AI.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, there's, of course, a certain part of the workforce that actually loves routine and repetition, right? They just want to do the same thing every day over and over again. They want to come to work on time and leave from work on time, and that's it for them. And that is, I think, a cultural challenge that will exist no matter what, because even if we don't let them change, they will probably lose their jobs and their relevance anyway, right? The question is how we can deal with this, because I would say then, instead of just giving up on them, at least give them a chance. And I would try to talk to them to say, there's a chance for you to stay relevant by changing your role in this. And from being the operational doer, you can become an orchestrator or you become like a product manager, right? So the automation that's going to happen that is taking over your tasks, you can be the product owner of that. For example, right? You know how good looks like, you know what the great results is, what the tasks are, and you can drive the development and the maintenance of this in the best way possible. Maybe that's a chance for you, right? Some people might still say, oh no, I don't want to do it, but there's a vote of confidence there, right? There's no other chance, right? Either you evolve or unfortunately you have to look for something else because the world is changing, right? But at least you give them a chance, right? And that is kind of what I think in the narrative around AI replacing people is not being talked a lot about. It's about evolving jobs too. We just should communicate it to people too, because they don't know in what direction they can evolve. But we as the experts that work in that area, we should tell them, right? We can give them choices to say, look, if you upskill in ABC and you take a product management course now, you might be more equipped to what's coming, for example. So that's kind of the idea.
Yeah, when you put it that way, it's like quite big incentives, or it should be that if you want to get paid in future,
That is
maybe you should. But
if you want to
but
start
people
income,
still
then
not maybe always understand it, and so to make it easier for them, and but of course there is some works that will not be replaced by AI or automation in near future. So people are not so worried if you don't have that long time to retirement. So you can count that.
Right.
That I still have time. Okay, but one interesting part, not maybe the most exciting part, is that you say that AI readiness means you need data governance, and that's something that I have thought a lot of also yesterday. That one of the best ways to become AI readiness is to just improve your data quality, data governance, and every week, every month, something new is released, like new version of ChatGPT 6, and this and that. So if you are a big organization, let's say Finnish public organization, it's not the way that you have to adapt every week some new like user interface. So what I think is that they should just build this foundation now, data governance, all these semantic layers and data governance, everything that is involved, and then they become ready. And when the tools get very good, they are already, then you can start to make like pilots and proof of concepts with your data. So do you agree with this, or what do you think about this?
I completely agree, but I also think there's the whole basis of this all, because everyone is crazy about AI readiness nowadays, is what does that even mean, AI readiness, right? And that's a really confusing word to use if everyone understands them differently. And the thing about it is, even if you are very literally talk about readiness for what is always a question, right? Because you cannot just say, I'm generically ready for AI. That is, what does that even mean, right? So it's always about what you use it for, right? And so with that, you have very low complexity AI use cases all the way to very complicated, very demanding AI use cases. So when we define readiness, that needs to be part of it. And this is also where data governance then comes in, because it's also about prioritizing and looking into what is needed to get there, right? So for example, if you just use let's say customer chatbot for informing customers about their contractual data, and the data set for that is already all good, right? Then it's only like a foundational model that already exists, and you just plug it into the database with a RAG, and you're good. Then you have like a very complicated multi-agent landscape of everything all coming together, and all of the unstructured data is not even close to being usable. All of the semantic layers don't work either. The data is all inaccurate, and it's a lot more work to get there. Then becoming AI ready takes a lot more work to get there, right? So either way, I think it's up to defining what to get ready for, to put it in the right sequence, be honest about how much time it will take and how much effort it will take to get 1, 2, 3, and then do it, as you said, in smaller steps as well, right? Like do maybe smaller use cases one after another, and don't try to have a big bang and solve everything all at once.
Yeah, exactly. And the AI readiness means readiness in data, technology, cultural.
Yeah.
Even you would have everything in place if people are not ready to use it. Like a couple of weeks ago, we had Finnish Defense Forces here, and in the last points they were is our organization ready to adopt this AI and data? What we were talking was that the whole even warfare is turning into digital
Right.
level. So data actually is very important than AI. But are the people, the
Right.
whole Finnish Defense Forces, tens of thousands of soldiers and then hundreds of thousands of reservists are
Right.
always ready? So that's the same challenge everywhere. Yeah, then we come back to the 5 Cs actually. I think that's very good tool to use. If you're implementing anything in data, you can just take Tiankai's 5 Cs and think about how I'm going to solve these.
Exactly.
So that could be my tip from your book and
Yeah.
your presentation yesterday. Is there anything else what comes to your mind? Something from an example that came to your mind yesterday? Something what you are thinking right in these past days?
Yeah, I had a actually very interesting conversation about what was interestingly more towards my initial comment of my presentation about my heritage, right? So it was about I talk about basically how I'm born and raised in Germany, but my parents are from China, meaning I felt like an outsider, like often in my past and growing up. But actually, that led to a different conversation with that one attendee, which was about how even people that are switching jobs, for example, might feel similarly on a professional level, right? Like,
Yeah.
for example, someone who worked in finance all their life and then they switch to data and now they're a little bit lost, right? They're like, now they are seen by the finance people as a data person, and by the data person, they're being seen as a finance person.
Yeah.
So they don't belong anymore suddenly. So that feeling continues. So how do you make them feel part of it, of anything, right? How do you make them feel that they belong? So they actually are effective at work and their own imposter syndrome or their own insecurities don't become a blocker for them to be good collaborators, right? It was a very interesting one because that is turning my personal story into a professional setting, and it might actually in current times be very relevant for a lot of people because very rarely do we see linear careers anymore, right? And
Yeah.
a lot of people are switching jobs all the time, and I'm sure that a lot of people are going through that to find their foot in their new job, and it takes a while. But I think as leaders or as decision makers, we can make those people more feel included more proactively, I hope. And I think that might be something also where we should just address it and think about it more clearly when we are working with those kind of people, because they might not talk about it, but they might actually really appreciate the help to just be more included in things.
Yeah. Myself, I always felt a little bit outsider in data world because I'm actually social scientist.
Oh,
I
interesting.
studied political science, international relations, and then I
There you
made a
go.
career shift. It was kind of a coincidence, you know. I just got certain type of job, and then here I am. But I have overcome it by trying to learn as much, and then I have made it as a strength. That actually, it is a strength to come outside and then
Have a new perspective, right?
yeah, understand data. I don't have to be able to code. I can do some basic SQL stuff and everything. There are a lot of people who are better in that than me, but are they people who can translate it as a business, like building data strategies, understand the business
Yep.
and data? So there is I think for everyone there is like a good spot, like a place in this world, in data world. I mean also in world in world
Absolutely,
in
yeah.
general. So that's a very nice thought, and that yeah.
Yeah.
And it also, like in Helsinki Data Week, there are probably people from different backgrounds.
Yeah.
There are career shifters, somebody who
Absolutely.
has just coded SQL their whole life.
Yeah.
Then there are somebody who's just jumped from total different
Exactly.
career and is like, should I understand all these things?
Yeah.
But that comes back to the inclusive and the language we are using, that
Yeah.
in the end, everybody should be involved because AI and all this data stuff is affecting everyone
Absolutely.
in the end. But let's wrap it up. I
Yeah.
think you get to your flight on time. And
Yeah.
thank you so much, Tiankai.
Thank you.
Tieto Töihin podcast.